Chair of the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Reconstruction Advisory Group. I am opening this meeting of the advisory group. Hereby call the meeting to order at 6:45. We call. Listen. 6:03. Yeah, we are holding this meeting in person at the MDTA Police Building at the Bay Bridge. And you should note that this meeting is being recorded and will be available on the BRAG webpage after the meeting for attendees to view and download. Attendees should also note that the recording will include the audio and video from this evening's meeting. Presentations will be available to download from the BRAG webpage. I would ask that anyone in the room with us this evening, please refrain from speaking unless you are presenting or answering questions so that background noise is minimized for those viewing remote. Members of the public pre-registered to comment on specific agenda item. I will provide you with an opportunity to comment after the agenda item is presented. We appreciate everyone's patience and ask that you hold any comments until the designated time. We ask that you please introduce yourself by giving us your name and community you represent before moving on with your question or comment. Members of the public joining us via Microsoft Teams will be able to view the meeting only. For security reasons, the chat function in Microsoft Teams is not enabled or for MDTA personnel. Any posts entered in the chat window are not visible to staff and will not be responded to. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded in its entirety. Okay, for the record, all members are present except for
Commissioner Moran
Mr. Moran.
and Donald Schnott.
Okay. All right. Next, we have agenda item is review of the minutes in the previous meeting held in January. Anybody have any comments, changes, or anything? Can I get a motion to approve as written? Second? So moved. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you very much. Next is a requirement from House Bill 56, which is a report on the group's activities since the last meeting and any recommendation they have based on those activities. For BRAG duties, they are to provide the MDTA with an independent citizen-informed perspective of the authority's operations at the Bay Bridge, assess potential concerns about activity at the Bay Bridge, educate the public about activity relating to the Bay Bridge, and work with the MDTA and provide pertinent input related to traffic and customer service issues. We'll start with Nick. I guess we'll go around the table. Members have any questions or comments?
First, I'd like to say that we just finished the winter months, so it's been kind of quiet, not like normal summer months. Also, I'd like to point out that we've had extraordinary wind, at least in my opinion, over the last several months. And it's caused a lot of interruption of the bridge, but people seem to understand that. I don't hear a lot of people cussing about that. I attend quite a few fundraisers in the last several months. Some of them have over 200 people at them. And a lot of people know I'm on the bridge committee and ask me questions. And the biggest concern to me is like the age, the maintenance, and keeping up with things and those types of things, which I've basically answered for. Yeah, I just tell them, yeah, they're going. If they weren't, I wouldn't be on it. Second complaint is the chatter from the new panels. I call it chatter. You all know, drive over and you get the bump, you know. And correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is in the beginning, you wanted to figure out the best way to fix that. You did come up with a solution. It's going to wait till you finish the whole thing and then smooth it all out.
We actually started those. Jim can address that.
Okay, okay. So that's fine. And then the only other thing, something Jim Moran sent around to all of us, and I have to say, I agree, the placement of the signs that are supposed to deter red X. I think you could find some better locations.
Those are just the initial ones, so.
I understand,
Yeah.
Well, that's the answer, so that's good. And I'd like to see you paint a red X on those signs. There are people on this correlate the two. I don't see why you couldn't. But that's about all I have to say.
Great.
Yeah, I have to echo a couple of the things Nick said, you know, the wind warning deal. I think it kind of instills confidence on the part of the citizens that safety is a critical issue. I don't really hear any complaints about that at all, but it's more of a positive thing that, you know, Bay Bridge officials are on the job and caring about, safety of crossing. There is a good deal of concern, Bruce and I were talking earlier, about the implications of the Key Bridge safety issues, implications with the Bay Bridge and what can or should be reasonably done. And we're kind of anxious to hear, you know, the direction forward. And there is, I think, positive concern and support for the SHA ramp closure issue this year. And we talked about that, but there, I get a number of questions about, is that going to be the same this year? And are they going to wait till the day after Ken Island Day like last year, which we really appreciated. But overall, I think it's, you know, the reaction has been fairly positive towards the operation of the bridge. And I want to say thanks.
Oh. Bruce, you have something you wanted?
Well, so I did want to give an update, similar to what we gave to our MDTA board last Thursday on the issue, but I'll wait, if I can wait till the end just to hear, the rest of
You
the.
guys something to bring up, so
Yeah.
Okay, the only real issue is what is gonna be the ramp closures. Everybody's pretty concerned whether it's better or worse than last year. So it's about it in my area, I mean,
Address that later.
Yeah, Terry's gonna give a little bit of a project update and then we can answer any questions in detail if there's.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, Nika mentioned it's kind of slow in area, I'm in the Annapolis area, not a lot going on, but I did have the opportunity to provide some insight into our plan at a planning and zoning meeting they had in that area a couple of days ago. A lot of construction and a lot of rezoning going on in that Annapolis area. If you're familiar with the Annapolis seafood market used to be, it's no longer there, but it's there, but so a lot of construction, a lot of thoughts about planning there. And one of the things that came up was one of the initial plans was to putting a 24 pump gas station there, which would have been, we're talking about traffic. So that's what kind of headway into the whole conversation. So again, most of the concern usually happens for the Bay Bridge during the summer months when people travel under the bridge, going to the beach, but just still making people aware of some of the plans that are going on. So just Sunny and share with the group.
Good, thank you. So, remember Moran, he had, it's just the X, we addressed that. If he's not here, I just want to bring it up. Does one of you all want to speak for Jim about the X signs or Steve?
Well, yeah, I think Nick covered it pretty well.
I just wanna make sure.
The replacement of the red X or the, you know, lane. One signs were in a location on the right-hand side near exit, so we're concerned that they wouldn't be, you know, visible to the folks that are violating the red X, so. So
You guys didn't have anything else you want to bring up tonight, did you?
that was the main,
Thanks for calling. Member Lynch.
Matt Lynch, Project Council and Growth Action Network. I am, as we all are, interested in your response to the negative press that has been in the, well, certainly in the capital news for the last couple of weeks, comparing what we're doing here as opposed to the lack of attention to the possible accident that occurred and the preventive measures that will be taken
We're going to address that.
ahead of things, and I think we should talk about that. Any news, I'd like to know if there was any assessment on the success of the chosen ramp closures for last summer. I thought.
It's going to be discussed later too.
I'm not sure. I like the expert report on it and what you're planning. We're all, as said, we're all interested in what we're gonna suffer through this summer, because we know, you know, no magic wand. The NEPA 2 progress, anything you can tell us on that, and as always, a site selection for the new span.
Dave Gable from Queenstown, Maryland. Again, the lane side road closures are an issue with me. I'll wait and hear what everyone has to say about that. I have a suggestion about the red X lanes on, I think, both sides of the bridge. I think is I don't know if anybody's thought about this, but why not put a rotating intermittent message up on the above message boards to let people know about that? It's something that probably could be done, programmed very easy. I think it's a good idea to do that. The signs that are out there about the red X, the red X, lanes, they're no good at all. I didn't even know they were there until Jim pointed it out in his email the other day.
We'll talk about that in Jim's.
That's good. So what about the message board, idea?
We can talk about that.
Okay, good.
Good.
Good. Okay, that's all I have.
Get to go last. Everybody covered everything mostly, that I want to talk about grant closures. The only other thing that's come up in conversations that I've had is simply around like communications when closures occur, right? And just the education that's required to let people know, hey, when advisory is happening, so on and so forth, right? So maybe this is an education to me about how to talk to constituents in the county around communication, but that's.
Melissa, which sign, the best way to get notifications to sign up like text messages and stuff?
Go to baybridge.com. There is, you can pick the facility to get the Bay Bridge alerts for Space Fan.
Yep.
So,
You have all that?
And
Yep.
Twitter,
Sure, if there's
if
anything
you
else.
follow the Twitter account, that's really live too.
All right.
I'm not very IT, but Melissa's into that, so I'm not sure if you got it.
John, do you have anything to add as far as Bay Bridge alerts?
Yeah, I mean, there's a, like you said, it's also on our MDTA website on the left side. On the left side, you can just enter your email address to receive the alerts that we send out for, major events at the Bay Bridge, including sometimes the full bridge closures.
Yeah, it's probably less about the way you communicate, and more about how do you educate people about the best way that meets what they need to learn about the alerts, right? So, yeah.
How we get out where they can
Yeah,
find our alert.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Do a social media post about that, remind folks as we come into the summer.
Yeah, and then this is a topic that Senator Hershey in particular asked us to look into. So we have been doing some explorations and talking to each one of the counties about how we could leverage for what their systems and what they do. And then potentially looking at something longer term ourselves, but there is, cost to that, and we do have these other means, but absolutely, it's something that we adhere to, particularly, the key is like, when do we really need to be aggressive about that? It's like, and I think the experience has been, when we have these closures that might be a 2-hour, like in an emergency or a big incident, something like that, so that people that know, if they're in Baltimore having dinner, like a certain commissioner I know was one time and knew how to get a hold of an executive director. Other people want to know how to do that, and then I don't want to give out my number to everybody, but yeah. So there's that. I have to call somebody else. Yeah, there's more things that we could do for everybody, and it's an important issue. In all seriousness.
Thank you.
I'll just add too, on state highways pages, we have the chart pages that have the live feeds for the cameras. So they also provide all of the incident updates when they occur, so that you can see what's happening on the bridge live.
Does Anne Arundel have like an Anne Arundel TV, because Queen Anne has a Queen Anne TV and do stuff? Yep. Maybe that'd be something to get like a video or something like that. Maybe. I know they're always looking for stuff to post on over time. So.
Yeah, so if I could, just kind of talk through what we have talked through with the MDTA board. Obviously the report that came out on the 20th that you saw from the NTSB made certain comments about what we were or weren't doing in their minds, and they were basing things on some emails from last fall. I think, as you all know, that we were doing something. We had reported out to you that we were doing the analysis. The analysis that was being done over the past summer, over this past year, was the AASHTO, the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, those guidelines. It was those guidelines that was being looked at. So we just hadn't completed that analysis of the Bay Bridge at the time. In our capital program, you see the study, the funding for that, and we do have funding reserved. About $160 million for once we get kind of an analysis back, and we will be reporting back to you as that project progresses. I think most importantly, we just want to point out that, our commitment to safety, as thank you for the references, has and always been there with all of our facilities. The wind warnings that have been in place for years and years, and were under development when I was here last time, and I think have been proof of that. I think the last summer's incident, we saw we had to do a closure when we had a concern about a particular ship, also demonstrated that. So we will be responding to the NTSB officially. They asked for a response within 30 days. That 30 days is around the April 20th timeframe. So we're developing that response to them on what our actions will be and what our plans will be. And it's a work in progress. You have to understand with these big facilities that there's not any one size fits all for any bridge across the country, right? They're all over different waterways. They all have different conditions. There's one method that has been looked at to evaluate the vulnerability. But we need to see how that works in these particular instances with the bridge. And we need to understand when we do that investment, what the benefits are from that. So that information, I know I'm talking about a very high level, but that information, takes time for the engineering studies to come out. We also need to think about, the fact that we are planning, that's the Tier 2 NEPA update. You all know it was never mentioned by the news that we are, planning for a potential replacement of the Bay Bridge structure. So, last December, you all knew that our professional recommendation was 2 bridges. So as we do anything at the Bay Bridge, the engineering team really has to look at, what the response will be. If we do something for this bridge, we don't want to preclude, what's going to happen for a future bridge. So anything that we put in the water needs to make sure we're not precluding a future, new span. Just as you are talking to folks, reiterating our commitment to the safety of our facilities and what we are doing would be appreciated. And please reassure people that, that safety of the bridge, it is a safe bridge to travel on. Yes, it's on certain lists, but it is a safe bridge. And I do know that this is a nationwide issue. We happened to be, commented on in that particular moment because that's the incident that they were investigating. The NTSB does not have any regulatory nor funding authority. So what they do is highlight issues, and every bridge owner in the country is responding. In fact, Jim and I learned, not last week or this week, I can't remember now, but that in Australia, the owners of bridges in Australia, we were, doing a presentation for them. They were all kind of responding to similar things that we were. So it is an international issue for every bridge owner. So just wanted to, we talked about that at our board meeting last week. Our board members had several questions that we wanted to get out there in the public record for them, and appreciate the opportunity to do it today.
I just want to say, yeah, we all know that been here on this committee for a long time, that if you travel to Bay Bridge, you know that you all do inspections all year long, all the time, to the best that you can. You're never going to find everything. Nobody's going to be perfect, but there's always snoopers out there, multiple snoopers, stuff going around the bridges and checking them out all the time. So if anybody travels with bridges, you see that. They're not out there just waving, fishing underneath the bridge. They're up there inspecting them. So I don't know what else more you can do, but I give you a lot of kudos for all that you do.
We know what ship owners can do, and they can certainly act in a more responsible manner than what Ollie did.
Like I say, you can do everything you want to do and you're supposed to do, and it still doesn't, comes back somehow to bite you. But so I appreciate everything you all do, and the amount of money that you spend in a year is probably astronomical for inspections and stuff. So if anybody have any other questions?
Now, I would like to comment, in terms of reaching out to the public, Bruce, I want to encourage maximum participation by you guys at our big Kent Island event in May, Kent Island Day. You normally are there in a very strong, positive way, and I just want to reiterate that. Usually a couple thousand people coming into town to Stevensville that day, May 17th. And it's a great, a lot of you guys have been there.
He knows you're going to be there. I think he's telling me I should be there.
You know.
I mean, you're in charge, so I'm just gonna say, you'll have folks there, but it's a great opportunity for outreach and addressing those questions that we have.
Okay, thank you all very much for all the time and effort you put into protecting the bridges. I know it's goes unnoticed when something happens, so it's much appreciated. So
I have a question, and I'm sorry.
sure.
To jump in. One of the issues that has been raised in the press is the fact that these container ships are getting so much larger. They're so much larger now than they were years ago when design of this bridge was completed. And, is there any way that you can control the, enhanced operation for these ships that, these container ships are humongous. And with a strong wind, they could be
So
gone.
so there's things that we can and will do with the Coast Guard. And we've already communicated some, but the Coast Guard has some responsibility for, regulating their navigational area. So there's some things that I think that can be done in that respect as well.
What do you?
Operations, we don't have those specific recommendations yet.
Bruce, who controls how big the ship is that can come up Chesapeake Bay? Is there someone, does the Coast Guard do it, the federal government, state of Maryland,
Not the state of Maryland. Jim, do you want to?
the Chesapeake
in there.
Bay tugboat?
The size of the vessel is dictated by the facilities at the port. So it's what are you able to bring in, in terms of draft, so the depth of the vessel, and then just what can fit at the berth that we have at the port.
The port is only concerned with the port, they don't get out of the way out here.
No, they do. Yeah, obviously. I mean, it's their tenants, it's their customers, so they do care about that. But I think in terms of capacity of a vessel, it's determined by the availability of the facilities at the ports.
All right, next on our agenda is updates on current projects from MDTA Chief Engineer Jim Martins. Then we'll go to.
Good evening, everyone. Jim Harkness, I'm the Chief Engineer for the Maryland Transportation Authority. We'll pull up the project table for you all to see. Okay. So we'll just run through my normal updates. The first project is BB 3013. That is our on-call structural repairs and miscellaneous modifications. So that, again, that is just our work order-based contract that we utilize to address inspection findings as they come up throughout the life of that contract. So that contract is an older contract. You can see it was given notice to proceed in 21. So we have gone through 53 task orders on that contract. That contractor currently has 3 that are active and that he's working to close out. So that should close out in the next month or so. We move down to BB 3012, which is our queue detection system. So there is only 1 camera left to install. So they are actively working on installing that foundation for that camera pole now. That estimated to finish that camera installation this spring, so in the next month or 2. And then essentially everything is then on the software development side. So we have given the University of Maryland Cat Lab notice to proceed on a memorandum of understanding with us and State Highway Administration to do work from now until June, the end of the fiscal year. And then we'll pick up with continuing that effort under an MOU just between MDTA and the Cat Lab ourselves. And that will essentially carry on for about a year or 2 while they continue to work on the software that will hopefully help us to project the traffic queues and delays at the bridge using existing data and historical data. We'll move on to BB 3017. So that is the eastbound deck replacement. That is phase 1 and package 1. So we are, making decent headway over this winter. You've mentioned the wind. So we lost quite a few shifts due to wind, some to rain and some to fog. But I think since our last meeting in January, I think we were able to install 30 panels or so. So in those 3 months, about 30 panels. So they are, they have, I think, 113 panels set out of the 156. So that's 73%, something like that, 72%. So they are doing well there. The casting yard where they make all the panels, they've made all the panels. So they have all 156 panels cast. So they're ready when we can get some good work or good weather and get out there and work. Contractor has been routinely installing 3 panels a night, 2 panels a night. So we see the panel effort kind of ending in the next 3 months. It does leave us with the closure pours that you mentioned, where we have the match casted panels that are in there right now. We were working through the materials issue there. Again, it's kind of a special concrete mix where we needed to get a lot of strength very quickly because we want to be able to reopen the roadway. So before it, we needed to get strength too quickly, but then we also kind of needed to level out and not get too much ultimate strength. We needed to be able to flex a little bit. So we were really working on that over this winter month. And we've got something, we poured 2 of those recently and they went well. And so contractor is cleared, so we'll start to work on those. And once they get underway, they'll be probably doing 3 of those a night. So we see that going for about 4 months. So all that to say, kind of things are starting to come to an end over the summer there. We are also replacing the lane use control signal gantries out there. So we have half of those done. So the remainder will happen as we get the rest of those deck panels in place. And finally, we are still in talks with the contractor about the second package 2. So we're working and negotiating on price and schedule for that package. And if that, we come to terms on that, we'll be able to just roll right into that. If for some reason we can't come to terms on that, we will strategize at that point how we move forward with that replacement of the deck in the current section there. So that's the update on that. Just wanted to touch on the, kind of the big picture for the redecking of the eastbound bridge. This was phase 1. So the next phase that we would do after, this phase 1 would be then the suspension deck, so the deck and the suspension span. We would go to that. After we completed that, we would then move to the through truss. So that through truss would be another phase of work. And then finally, we would do sort of both the low level sections that are near this shore and the eastern shore. So you kind of be working both ends of the bridge, and it's the low level stuff. So those are the future phases of the.
It'd be a dumb question, Jim, but how the heck do you use cranes to get under the suspension part of it? How do you do that?
That's a good question. So we'd be kind of like when we're back on the westbound.
Okay, so you're doing
From
half
the
of
deck,
time
not-
on trucks?
Yep, we wouldn't be, probably try to do the full like we're doing here. We don't have it all sorted out, but
Okay,
we would see.
different process. So.
Yeah, so it would not be as marine based.
Right.
It would go back to doing it from the bridge.
And that does work. We go from the westbound.
Right,
Thanks.
I had a question.
yes.
What is the projected time frame for all phases to be complete on the eastbound bridge? Is there like 4 phases or 5 or what is it?
Yeah, it's the essentially five phases, yeah.
What's the projected date?
They're approximately spaced out at 2 years each. So if we delivered them back to back, it would be 10 years. So part of the decision making on that is really our continued condition inspections. So those inspections that we were talking about earlier, those kind of help us to decide how quickly we need to line those things up. So the phases were based on their conditions. So we were doing the worst first. So we will continue to monitor that, the conditions of those. and decide if it, really does need to be back to back. But that's usually kind of problematic because then we have the westbound we have to worry about. We can't neglect that for the expense. So, thanks.
The gantries. You're replacing the whole structure or just? the
Yes.
socket?
Absolutely.
The whole-
Yeah, you might notice it's a slightly different design, but it have that curve to it. So you can definitely tell the new ones from the old ones. So yeah, it's a full structural replacement of those gantries. Yep. Then we'll move on to our next project, BB 3021. So that's again, similar to the very first project. It's the replacement for that BB 3013. It is an on-call and a task order base. So we currently have given the contractor 9 task orders. So all total, we have 12 task orders ongoing out on the bridge among these 2 contracts. And finally is BB 3004, which is the construction maintenance equipment storage building. And that we have the final design package in-house. We're just reviewing that one last time before we turn it over to our procurement group. And we'll be putting this out for advertisement over the summer. And then we would expect to take bids by the winter and hopefully start construction in spring of next year. So that's all I have on those projects, and then just touch on the signing. So we have ground mounted signs installed. So we have one set of those in each direction. So we have the large ground mounted signs on the right side, as it was noted. That is partially due to the medians in those areas. So there's either no real median there because it's barriers, or it is a very narrow median. And that sign is pretty wide. So you have to take that into consideration when you look at installing signs at medians. There's also utilities in those medians. We have fiber and power running in those medians, so that creates some issues with installing signs in medians. So that being said, we had to elect for a right side installation, so we installed on the right side, knowing that in combination with the ground mount signs, we were having overhead signs as well. So the overhead signs will be up on some of those sign gantries, and they will be aligned on the left side. So we will have both a left and a right side sign installation for that same message out there. So the ground mounted signs are quicker to fabricate and install. So we are anticipating completion of those overhead signs by June of this year. That's the update.
Question on that, as I mentioned earlier, what about the idea of something on the message board to also remind people? If I travel this road, I've been doing it for 25 years. I travel it 5 to 6 days a week. A lot of things, there's so many signs to look at, as we all know. I'm just wondering, it's easy to program a message into the message board in a rotating fashion like we have right now about left lane closed and so forth. What about an idea like that?
I think we have a lot of competing messages for those boards. That's why we elected to go with the static, because then it's always there. And it's more suited to the regulatory message that carries. So we have, very limited space. We already run 2-page messages on those, the dynamic message signs. So we're already competing already with prioritizing messages. So electing to put this on a static overhead is why we went this way. Yes, you're right. It would have, been a little bit easier to do it that way, but because of those priority messages that we have, we're limited on what we can do. So there's federal limitations on what you can run on those boards. So 2 pages is the maximum that you can run, and so we're already at that. So it's not like we can add a third.
Okay.
Brady? Anything else?
Are you gonna give us any details on the inspection plan and the maintenance plans for the structure of the Bay Bridge, the vertical poles and the foundation? Such as in the news this one, because of the failure of the key bridge. In other words, how strong, I know you're inspecting, I know you're maintaining. Can you?
That's ongoing stuff that you have ongoing yearly, during inspections too. You're not doing anything special. It's,
Yeah, what I was referring to is what we're gonna be submitting back to the NTSB. And I think what we always do here is talk about the inspections and how we're in full compliance with the inspections for the existing structures. I'm not sure I understand it.
I think she's asking,
Sure.
what's the design of the pier protection gonna be, and I think you've already commented that
How often
you're not
do you
gonna get
study
that.
and have to give a report in?
Well, the study you're doing should be able to answer that thing.
Yeah, right, yes.
Yeah, so, the current project in our 6-year, CTP is to evaluate it, the bridge, then, come up with concepts and eventually move into, design and hopefully construction. So, we are entering into that, sort of the concept development phase. No, we're in the concept development phase.
And do all the analysis and evaluation and engineering, and then you develop concepts.
nothing's easy. All right. Okay, next we have up MDTA SHA Deputy Administrator / Chief Engineer of Operations. On, Terry Susan.
A lot of words.
Okay, you don't have to name it,
Yeah.
is that one? Okay.
Terry and Susan, they're both short to make up for it. So, good evening, everyone. So we'll start on the Queen Anne's County side. We are, for the ramp management, we are planning, or Queen Anne's County is hosting a public meeting, April 23rd, at 6:30 at the Bayside Elementary School. At that meeting, we will have display boards. We will be seeking public comment. We suspect that operations will look similar to last year. And we are planning to start May 18th, the day after an Island Day. And we would run that weekend before Memorial Day, through the summer, through Labor Day. Those are our plans, but again, we are seeking public comment. And also on the Queen Anne's County side, I just wanted to mention that you may have attended some of the meetings for the Maryland 18 Main Street study, health study, correct? So that report is expected, the final report is expected this summer. Any questions on Queen Anne's? All right, Anne Arundel County side. Similarly, Broad Neck Council is going to host us for a meeting on April 24th. At that meeting, we will have more detailed presentation. Again, we are seeking public comments. We are also reaching out to some of the area businesses for their inputs. Again, planning to start the weekend before Memorial Day, run through the summer, through Labor Day. We have not.
Gonna be wet on the
finalized-
bottom of one of them. Sorry.
We have not finalized the details. Again, we're seeking public comment and still seeking input from everyone on that. So
Do you have any comments on how successful the ramp management plan was last year?
So, all in all, so the comparison I have right now, and we'll get more details for the April 24th meeting, that is to 2022, when we didn't do any ramp management. So there is less delay compared to no ramp management, and it saves about 3.5 minutes on the access roads. So overall, it was successful. Comparing it, just, I don't have data to support this, but I know in 2023, our first year of doing ramp management, we had fantastic weather, and every weekend we were in two-way operations on the bridges. So there were 4 days in 2024 throughout the summer where for wind restrictions or other reasons, we weren't in two-way operations. And we know that greatly affects anything we were doing. So that is one component. And we can go, like I said, go into more details in a presentation on the 24th.
Yeah, I'll say high level too. I think, largely, the feedback was positive from last year. We didn't get a lot of business complaints, meaning the more ramps we close, you start to garner the frustration from the businesses about the amount of detour route that folks have to travel. And, generally, short of a few exceptional days when there were wind warnings or something, and we just had no contraflow for a really extended period, the operation worked well. And the local community didn't offer complaints on those days. It seemed to be effective. So there were some outlier days where it was challenging. I don't know that we're gonna be able to do anything for those really exceptional days when the backup's beyond Severn River, that's tough. Just not enough lanes with bridge. We talked about that a lot of times. So I think largely, on the operational side, from State Highways perspective, we'd like to figure out how to get our labor costs down. This is a very expensive operation for us, to be able to implement. And so it's hard to sustain it, frankly. We have to figure out whether it's gates or something deployable to make this, there's an interest in this not being a pilot and it being something that seems like we're gonna be more committed to doing long-term. We've got to figure out how to do that in a more cost-effective way. We all hear the news about the budget regularly. We've got a lot of competing needs. And so we've got to figure out a way to do that.
Comment,
Does that answer your question, Pat? Sort of.
I have a comment. Again, traveling these roads on a regular basis, last year, there's no doubt that the traffic flows much better when the ramp management takes place and the left lane, or let's call it the red X lane, is managed properly though. I know last year, one of the ramps were not closed. This is on the western shore side now. One of them was not closed. That did make a difference. I'm talking about in real time, what I see on a regular basis when we do have the heavier traffic volumes though, meaning in the evenings or weather events or whatever. So I guess it's too early to say what the plan is for the ramp, what ramps are gonna be closed and when.
Correct.
Makes
So
a big
we're gonna take public comment. So last year we did only close ramp 32 Oceanic Drive right here, but where we're meeting. We did not close ramp 30, which we had done in 2020.
Yeah, in the last, one of the last couple meetings, there was someone mentioned regarding waves. I think it's WAZE, I believe it is.
Yeah.
I think we have to do more work with that though, because it is very irritating. I'm a very patient person, but I don't know how many people in this room travel the Bay Bridge every day, both ways. The morning times, no problem at all, but the evenings are a bear. And with proper ramp closures for extended periods of time, I heard Mr. Pine speak about, the cost. But I think the people have to be thought about first. I mean, it is irritating as ever to sit in 2-hour backup cell on a regular basis, so. And then much better management on the red X lanes. I'm gonna call them left-hand lanes. I don't care what you do, people drive up that lane all the way to the gates. It's not right. And I believe that there should be officers sitting out there at the beginning of the red and pulling everybody over that is in that lane. That's my thoughts. We have to do, is anybody travel this road every day, like I do, that actually sees these things go on? So Whether you agree with me or not, though, again, I've been doing it for 25 years. And, it becomes a problem now. There's road rage, there's all kinds of things going on out there that creates very dangerous situations. And I know I'm only one person that speaks of it though, but there's a lot of people that I know that have a lot of issues with it though. And hey, look, I chose to live on the Eastern Shore, many years ago. But, there's at least some things that I think that we can do. I don't know what the cost is, but I think there's some things we should be looking at though, for ramp management and also that left-hand lane or red X lane to help, manage that. Is there any thought about putting officers out there when we do have these lane closures and wind and weather and so forth?
So I'll defer to the red X's are part of the MDTA system, so.
But who controls the actual, the MTA, the officers, what they do on a regular basis though? Who does that here?
That's our police force,
Okay,
yeah.
right. And I was just wondering, what's your thoughts on that? I know we've mentioned it before. And I know there's probably not enough people to go around, but
I mean, there's resources, I mean, Will referenced it in his, the resources are a challenge, but safety of how you're positioning to pull people over is also a challenge.
oh.
Active, I mean,
understand that.
you see it every day, right?
Absolutely.
So that's the balance that have is the enforcement, and it's also, I guess the true impact, Jim, I'll turn to you, but of that, where people, stack in that. I mean, we try to enforce, I shared the efforts with Commissioner Moran. We're trying to step that up all the time. The good news is, it's been a challenge to recruit police officers. Today, we had a record number in our recruit class starting. Hopefully, as many as possible will make it through the full end, and we are staffing up. So there's a lot of effort going into that side of things. But actually putting officers out there in a center lane, the way it's structured with a medium, we have to be careful of how they deploy. So looking at all those things operational as you can, but I think Will referenced it before. We're in a situation where we are dealing with 5 lanes over the bay and the 6 lanes leading up to it.
I totally understand it. That's why I would like to be part of this, so at least I can give my input and thought process. And
That's why we're here. It's beneficial.
that's what we're all about, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if I don't say anything, I'm not no good here.
I'll just add to.
Yes.
On the ramp management piece, I want to touch on that, but also at these BRAG meetings, MDTA police have come in and provided numbers of citations that they've provided. So it's not like it's absent. There's always with enforcement, this idea, we get it, whether it's litter, whether it's texting and driving, innumerable examples of things where people want more enforcement. And with litter, I tell people, we've got photos of, you take a shot, you go back the same day after you clean it up, totally bare grass, week later, take a picture, looks like you didn't do anything. And the expectation is we're like standing out there catching litter as people are throwing it out the car. There's just practical realities on what's possible.
Sure.
So on the ramp management piece, I think, I just want to make one point clear, because I think your comments were sort of implying that by doing the ramp management, that would help the flow of traffic across Bay Bridge. There is some of that. We've seen from our analysis that it does reduce the weave movements as traffic is merging in. However, it's pretty minimal, frankly. And so the primary purpose of the ramp management is really to try to reduce congestion so that locals can reach their homes and have access to the amenities around the Bay Bridge. It's not, the primary focus is not to relieve congestion at the Bay Bridge. So I get what you're driving at there. I just want to make clear, like, how many ramps we keep open, it's such a minuscule impact on the larger landscape of traffic on 50. That the purpose of the ramp management is not about that. The purpose is to make sure this Pat and others can get to McDonald's or wherever their driveway, wherever they want to go on the weekends, while those closures are in place.
So while we're still talking about the ramps, what happened to the traffic light that was installed probably the year before last, if my memory's correct? It was on the the Sandy Point, entrance ramp on 250. What happened to that?
That was a temporary traffic signal that we deployed as a pilot. We found it was not successful with closing the ramp.
Just back up the sides.
On the subject of, lights, this is trivia compared to traffic problems. But I do have a member of my board who has put together an extensive report. In fact, he laughed at me a couple of weeks ago and insisted I drive around with him so he could show me all the tall lamps that are down either on the ground, in the Route 50 Gardner area. They've been pulled right off their foundations. I'll send you the letter that he wrote. He apparently is called, everybody he knows, both state highways and,
I'd have to know the routes, the locations for us to be able to know if it's county or us, but
we'll take you on a drive if you want, like I had to do. And he made me drive it twice so he could show me every lamp that's there. But there are lamps that are just lying on the side of the road and that they can be stolen and they're worth money. In fact, some of the lamps, the poles that have been on foundations are completely gone. And I was told by somebody who had suspected they had been stolen to sell for money because of the chemical components.
a lot of the lamps that we own, I don't know where this is, what you're referring to, but they have what's called a breakaway base. So that if they're hit by a vehicle, they have purposely fall over. You don't want a hard obstruction that a vehicle crashes into that then the car has to absorb all of the impact. So they're kind of designed to do that, frankly. I'm not sure in this case. Again, I'd have to see the specific lamps.
I will get you a copy of the letter.
Right.
One more small update. Last year we did put in a traffic signal at Maryland 179 Old Bottom Road. There is, that's within a community, so there is a driveway right there. The signal was shining into the home. So we did remove those signal heads from her driveway. And we are optimizing that signal. There was also some problems with the detection because of the trees and the shadows was throwing off the detection. We were also looking to make those adjustments. So trying to optimize that signal.
We'll take you with us on a drive.
That sounds good.
Buy you lunch too.
A lot of good places around here. Any other questions for me?
Read over fast, you can adjust the lights to flashing. Also for today when the traffic comes up on westbound, comes up on the Route 8, it makes a left. They were stopped in the northbound lane because the light was backed up. So I'm not sure what the time is right.
Okay.
That still cool. Sometimes it flashes left turn to go eastbound 50 and sometimes it doesn't. Going south.
Were you going westbound 50 up the ramp
Yeah,
8 and made that?
I was in the right lane, left lane had stopped and was right in the northbound lanes. It would have been if they like changing them.
Yeah, to take a look.
The flashlights help, but I don't think they're timing right. I think they're just not, sometimes they're flashing, sometimes they don't.
Okay.
I don't think they're flashing enough to let the people go through and clean it out before it turns. You think it would flash every time after the signal goes through its cycle, it would flash, and some seem like it's not doing that for some reason.
Yeah, sometimes they're relying on those cameras to detect the vehicles, but we can have the team determine if you're correct.
It has saved a lot of accidents, I think, they're greatly reduced, the overflows. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have update on the Bay Crossing Tier 2 NEPA study, MDTA Department of Planning and Program Development Director, Melissa Silver.
Thank you. Good evening for inviting me to speak with you tonight. Wanted to give you a quick update. The last time we met, Jim helped me check back the calendar. It was January 8th. So we were just about at the end of our comment period from the December public meetings. So the comment period closed on January 13th. So I have not met with you since we closed the comments and summarized those comments. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on what we heard. We received over 1,100 comments and surveys, which is wonderful. That's just during that short period of November 12th to January 13th. So a lot of people learned about the project and gave their input. Some of the key findings that I just wanted to find out or share with you, I'm sorry, is that folks overall acknowledged the need to do something at this location and understood that removing the existing old bridges and putting new bridges in made sense to them. A lot of folks were concerned about impacts to natural resources, specifically Sandy Point Park was mentioned many, many times. Folks are concerned about the impacts that we might have there. This one I thought was kind of interesting. A substantial number of people were interested in transit over the bridge, like bus transit, a bus lane, or something like that. But less than 50% of them said that they would use it. So I'm not going to take that as negative. I'm going to take it as positive. We've been working very closely with MTA as well as the counties. And I think the interest tells us there is interest that we can develop into the future. And maybe we can get that 50% number up. I think there are a lot of interesting opportunities for bus access over the bridge that we may be able to use into the future. So I see this as a starting place where we really don't have a whole lot of service, but it is something that we can grow and people are interested in growing it. So I'm going to take that one as positive. A lot of folks are interested in a shared use path over the bridge. We have a lot of bike ped facilities on both shores, and we have great plans that we would be able to connect a shared use path on both sides and connect to existing trail networks. That is an option that we are looking at with all of our build alternatives, and folks are very excited about that. We were concerned about who was responding and providing us comments, and the majority of the comments that we received are from folks within the corridor, which is good input, but we also received input from folks, different states, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Virginia. So, I'm sorry, DC also. So we received a wide amount of input. So that tells me that we had travelers as well as commuters responding. Wanted to hit real quick on our schedule. Got good news, and the good news is we are still on schedule to be done at the end of to have a record of decision, final environmental impact statement, complete the NEPA process at the end of 2026. So I'm going to review real quick where we are, where we're headed. Right now, Melissa and her team are gearing up for our summer season. Between April and November, they will be at over 20, way over 20. Public events, engagement opportunities, things like Kent Island Day, we will definitely be there. Bruce and Jim and Will, I think also they were coming. But we will be at all different kinds of events.
In the parade.
Oh, in the parade. That, yeah. I think I heard that. But one of the key things about getting out there is just so people hear about the project. The last thing, if people have input or positive, negative, we want to hear all of it because it's all important. And like I said, getting 1,100 comments in just 2 months was huge. We're really excited. And we feel like we're doing a pretty good job of getting out there into the public and just making sure that people know about the project and have the opportunity to voice their opinions.
Build our mailing list for the hearings that are coming up as well.
Yeah. So while Melissa and her team are out and about, the engineering team, this is our crunch time. This is our really hard crunch time. We are developing our draft environmental impact statement. And that essentially, that document will summarize impacts of our impacts of the different alternatives. So not only do we completely develop the traffic patterns, we completely develop the impacts, and then we go a step further and we take efforts to minimize those impacts. So our first brush is impact. And then we go back and we look at every single property along the corridor and what those impacts are. Might they be minimized? Can they be avoided? And it's a very intense It will take months for us to complete that work, but it's good effort. It's good effort because it is an iterative process where we look at impacts not just once, not just twice, but throughout as we move forward. So our impacts will certainly be going down. We anticipate that we will be sharing MDTA's preferred alternative with the public at, in the DEIS, which is the draft environmental impact statement, which we will be sharing with the public at hearings in December of this year. Hard to believe. But yes, we'll be sharing our preferred alternative. Once we share that, we will again open up for comments. And with those comments, we would prepare our final document and prepare to have the Federal Highway Administration sign off and agree on this preferred alternative to become the selected alternative in late 2026. So that would be a final environmental impact statement and record of decision. We would wrap them up into one. So we would get those approvals at the same time. The end of 2026, we are still on schedule. So very happy to be able to report that. Any comments? Pat, you did ask us to come out to speak with the Broadneck community. We'll be doing that on April 24th, I believe the date is. Yep, 24th. And also we'll be joining our state highway friends on the 23rd as well. Queen Anne's County meeting. So if anyone else, the invitation is always open. If anyone else has any other community meetings or organization meetings that you would like us to attend, or even if you'd just like us to give you some postcards or flyers or anything like that, we'd be happy to share some with you. Anytime, you can contact me, contact Melissa or Melissa, we can both help you. So that one's easy to remember. Any other questions?
I think one of the things that I don't hear as much concern about, because you guys have addressed it, is compressing the crossing of Kent Island. You know, you did away with that 2 mile wide swath thing and staying compressed right as close as possible on the existing Route 50 track. That's a good thing, and it gets a lot of support.
Yeah, and it's helping people focus more.
It is.
And really, when you see lines on paper, like I said, once you sell those lines on paper in December, it really helps to make things real.
It does.
And people are able to give more thoughtful input because they can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, and less of a threat, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have unfinished business, and there's nothing from the January meeting, so there's no objection. We'll move on to new business. New business, our annual report is forthcoming. As a reminder, for House Bill 56, the BRAG is required to submit an annual report on or before July 1st that details the activities of the BRAG for the preceding year. Members should have received a copy of last year's report prior to this meeting. Forthcoming report is anticipated to follow a similar structure, and draft will be circulated for members' review and comment once it is prepared. Anybody have any discussion on the annual report, what they'd like to see included in it that's not different from last year?
Well,
People that are
stick with that format. But the summary of our minutes, basically what
pretty much every meeting.
we're doing, you know, which is a good way to do
All right, you go with that?
Sure. Get started.
Thank you very much. Next, we have public comments. Now open the floor to public comments from members of the public. Have anybody? Anybody in the room? Okay, our next meeting is scheduled to take place on Wednesday, July 2nd. I brought up to Melissa about that's close to the July 4th. Do we want to move that to the following week? Which would be the 9th. I think it's actually the fireworks for Kent Airs. Which is July 2nd. I think it's the 4th. I think it's the second, rain day's the 3rd this year. I don't know. Won't be about next fire. I think it's, so anybody's going on vacation, whatever, would you rather have the meeting on the 9th or keep it on the 2nd?
The 9th is okay for me.
Push it a week.
9.
Ninth, ninth,
Yeah, that's good.
all right, majority says the ninth, so let's move the next meeting to Wednesday, July the 9th. Just in case somebody wants to go out.
Just to highlight for Will and either Jim or Bruce, we might have a conflict with the ninth, but we'll be represented.
We'll send it for free, yeah, send the information, yeah.
Hopefully Jerry can come.
Which is bad.
That's what they have to
Okay, if you have any problem, just give us the information you have, give it to someone to bring in, or send it to Melissa, or disseminate it, whatever. All right, now a motion for adjournment. So moved. No, you're not against it. Okay, thank you. All in favor, so we're good. Thank you, everybody for coming. We'll see everybody Wednesday, July the 9th.